And I guess something within me is like, no, romance is like gay, but so am I. Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrew. Today we're going to be discussing my most surprising books. So these are books that for one reason or another, I just wasn't sure I was going to like them, or wasn't sure that I was going to like them this much for multiple reasons. So let's start. Also, some of these I feel like are funny because they're thrillers, so they were also surprising just by their content within the book. So number 10 is going to be Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Sager? I don't know exactly how to say it, but I will say for this one, this author is like everywhere. I feel like everyone is always reading his new, like everyone who reads every genre is always reading his new book. And I'm just like, I have FOMO. I absolutely have FOMO on this author. And I finally read one, and I also feel like their wait list for my library is insane to read any of his books. I finally got one, and I feel like I've seen all kinds of reactions to this book. And I think I ended up on a 4-star for it because I really liked it. Actually, this book takes place in New York, and I think I read it in 2 days while I was in New York. So that just added to the like atmosphere of it, just like it just added to the experience of the book. So it just had a lot going for it already, but I'm also glad to be, and I know that like there are people who like this and a couple of his other books, but like hate everything else that he's written. So like I'm just curious like where I shall fall once I read some more. I think the one I'm the most interested in is probably Home Before Dark. I was like, I can picture the cover, Home Before Dark. Might put a hold on that like today, we'll see. But yes, I was definitely surprised by the plot, and I like that we only get like one main character. I feel like that's a better choice in thrillers, really, because it's also usually the most, I don't know, I haven't read as many thrillers as I have like fantasy, so I don't know, but I'd like to read more Riley Sager and more thrillers. So, and also, speaking of, number 9 is going to be The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. And I remember like where I was when I was listening to that. I was like walking the dog outside, which I do all the time, but like I can remember like I just like I'm right back to where I was when I read it, like when I think about it. And I just remember but I honestly don't remember the plot twist. Like I honestly if you ask me right now, what's the twist of this book? I couldn't tell you, which some people might say is bad. I would say that's incredible because then I can reread it and be re-shocked. But I just remember being shocked multiple times by this book. So yeah, and I definitely want to read more Ruth Ware. She is a powerhouse as well as Riley Sager. Like both of them are names that like I've been wanting to read forever. And I'm so glad that I finally did, and I enjoyed their work, and hopefully it continues. Number 8 on my list is going to be The American Roommate Experiment, which is the same author as The Spanish Love Deception, which I have not read. But this one is surprising mostly because of the harsh critique I've heard of The Spanish Love Deception. People, there's a specific line from that book that people quote all the time that I'm not sure about. I don't remember anything like that happening in this book. I'm not saying it didn't, I'm just saying I don't remember it. So it could have happened. But I do remember really, I think I read this also very quickly. I was playing my Switch while listening to it, so I can again remember like where I was when I was listening to it. And it was just such a good, like it just, I feel like it developed, it was only focused on the romance, like as opposed to like other, like trying to mix up the genres and stuff, which is more challenging than you would think, I guess. But as a contemporary romance, I definitely think it was successful, like at getting you invested in the characters. And I think there was a cameo as well from the characters from Spanish Love Deception, because I think they're part of like a companion series, but I haven't read that, but I am intrigued to read that based off my enjoyment of this book. And I guess I'm just surprised at how much I enjoy contemporary romance like overall, because you would just think that it's not, I don't know, I've always loved rom-com, so like I don't know why I'm surprised, but I just feel like it gets shit on so much by annoying Dubro people. I don't know, like, but also I say that and I'm trying to think of like any example. Like I guess it just seems like they're not willing to read it. I'm like, if they just read it, but they're like, they don't even want to read it. I mean, people are allowed to read what they want to read. Like, don't get me wrong. I just feel like they're just missing out on some fun. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And I guess something within me is like, no, romance is like gay, but so am I. So all the more reason to read it, you know, side tangent there. Okay, and then the 7th one on my list is, again, surprising that I enjoyed it, but also the content of the book, very surprising. It's Prodigy by Marie Lu, which is part of a dystopian trilogy that I don't want to spoil things for you because I didn't know when I started the series like the trajectory of it. But I will just say that, see, even saying like what other dystopians in the genre do will probably make you think this one doesn't do it, which is true. And I guess that's pretty much all I can say without, I don't know. I just remember really enjoying how Marie Lu was like, oh, you guys thought that we were going to take this story one way, but we absolutely did not do that. And I really liked our main characters here. I definitely want to read more by Marie Lu. I finished this trilogy last year. Like, I think she did a great job of the dual POV. It's hard to pull off more than 3 POVs, in my opinion. And I think she just did everything. She did the plot well. She did the characters well. Like, the pacing, like everything in this book was great. I pretty much don't have anything to say about it. Like, I really don't have any complaints. I mean, maybe a little bit more like depth to like the world could have been something I would have enjoyed more just compared to like other like adult books I've read. But for a YA book, like I think it did it. Okay, the number 6, most surprising, is going to be The Demon King. And to me, this is surprising because I previously, I think, did not finish the book. I think at one point, yeah, I started it, didn't finish it. I think I had just so many books going at once, which has been a problem for me in the past that I am rectifying this year. I just had way too many books going at once, and I just couldn't focus on I had too many different characters and plot lines going on. So I picked this up again sometime last year, listened to the whole audiobook, and just really enjoy. I was actually like thinking how similar this is to other stuff, and I feel like that helped me kind of like place this within, what's the word? Place this within its spot in YA. I don't know if that makes any sense. Mostly comparing this to An Ember in the Ashes, which I did enjoy the first book of that series more than this, like don't get me wrong. But rereading this, I think I just had a deeper appreciation for what we're doing here, and just kind of also reading more fantasy, like between DNFing this and picking it back up. I just think I was like, I don't know, because this is like high fantasy and I'm more of an urban fantasy person, which is apparently so rare on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, this has like so many tropes that I love, and I do want to finish the series eventually, but now I'm thinking that it's been so long since I've read this, I'm gonna have to reread this again, so I'm gonna have to be in the mood. But like, it has like magical objects and a magical quest and like a history with like mistaken, what's the word? Like history text within the context of the world that is possibly misconstrued. Like, it is so many tropes. And I did really like it. So, you know, it has a kingdom. Like, it's just so basic though that I'm not sure when I want to read this. Especially if this was written by an author of color, I'd be more likely to pick it up, or an LGBT author, but like, it's not. So, I mean, that sounds kind of negative, but like, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed this, considering that I had DNF'd it in the past, being the point of this whole video. So, moving on. Okay, number 5 is going to be The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, which, in a similar vein, I tried to read The Gilded Wolves, the first book in that series, and I did not finish that at like 70%, which makes me angry because I could have just finished it and marked it as read, but I think I did still mark it as, I don't know. I just like couldn't get into that book. Again though, considering like all the other books that I've read, and I think back to that book and I think like, I think Miss Chakshi was in her bag. And when I tell you that this book, her writing, just something about her writing, and the fact that it has the same narrator as Strange the Dreamer, Steve West, like incredible. He's an incredible narrator, so like he's just helping by speaking. It just improves the experience overall. And I do think like the mythology, folklore elements of the story, and also like the flashback, just everything about the book. Like 4.5, like incredible. So close to being one of my favorite books of the year, like so close, but just couldn't quite edge out what is in there in like a top 10. It's probably like number 11 to be honest. So that's where I'm putting this one, and absolutely think it's worth a read. Like, it's so good. The only reason that it's not like farther up the top of my list is because of just like the ending and being a little bit unsatisfied because it's a little bit ambiguous, which I always hate. So just my opinion. Okay, the number 4 is going to be Cassandra in Reverse, which is a contemporary kind of lit fic book, which I would never think I would put a lit fic book on this. But when it's lit fic with like a little bit of speculative, I think that's really gonna be for me. I think if I can pick up some books like that, because I do love actually good writing. I feel like there's a lot of fantasy with bad writing, but incredible world building, which is again another topic, another tangent. But this book. Okay, so this is a book about Cassandra, obviously, and she's able to rewind time in short little chunks. So that's kind of like the fantastical element of it, and it was just so well done. It was such an interesting way to like have a fantasy element but not too much where it like overpowers the story, because it's definitely more focused on like her as a character and like her journey, like her growth, but using this tool as like a vehicle for that. I think it was just so good. It was such a good book. It was like easily a 4-star read, like, and I just really liked all the characters. Like I liked our main character, I liked all the side characters, like everybody felt like they had a purpose to the story, which can't say that for every book. Like I just feel like it was a good book. Probably not going to be something I think about like all the time for forever, but for this year, most surprising. Okay, and now we're going to talk about a darker shade of magic. Okay, so you're seeing you're seeing 2 different videos with 2 different versions of me in them. Obviously, I just finished filming the end of my most disappointing books, and now we're back into my most surprising books. So I had gotten up to my 4th most surprising, and again, these are from like least, how would you word that? The books at the bottom are the ones I was the least surprised that I liked. Up to the top is like I was the most pleasantly surprised by whatever. And I am, so this next one, it's Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab, which I also talked about in that World Hoppers video. And this one is obviously very surprising because I previously had read the first book. I've always liked the first book, so either scenario I liked the first book. So the surprising thing is really more so the second and the third books, because I decided to reread this whole series, not because of the continuations. I don't really know what possessed me to reread it. I was just like, you know, I feel like I read this not knowing how much garbage is out there. So I've gone out there, read other stuff, and then I was like, you know what? V. Schwab knows how to fucking write. So I decided to pick the series back up. And even though Lila Bard is still not one of my favorite characters, everybody else kind of is. So I would say that definitely, I mean, I could do a whole video on this series as well. Like the thing is that Lila Bard is very focused. She's kind of the main character of the second book, and I feel like the third book we really get a better balance between all the characters. And I feel like V.E. Schwab had really mastered like how to handle like whose POV to be in and when by the conclusion of this series, which I have thought about in other series that I've read. Also, like the end of last year and into the beginning of this year, I'm thinking there's another series that I read that I'll talk about it in my favorites, because the first book in that series is one of my favorites of the year. But this series proves to me that V.E. Schwab knows like how to balance POVs. And I think that is a hard thing to learn. And I think you just have to write, and she's written a lot of books. I think, well, I would say by the third book, she got it down. Because the second book, I definitely felt like it was way too much Lila. And I don't hate Lila as a character, especially after rereading it. I enjoy Lila. I just don't enjoy like an excessive amount of Lila. But this isn't a video review for this whole series. This is just to talk about how I reread the series. I was shocked because I would never say I hated the second. I might have at one point felt like I hated the second book, but my opinion has obviously changed, and I do think that this is a solid series. I would not put it on like a favorite series of all time list, but I do think that it's good it's a really good like bridge series from young adult to adult, because again, this isn't I feel like I'm just reviewing this whole series. So now I kind of want to, maybe I will make a video just about the series. That could be fun. So definitely surprised to enjoy this one on reread.